Every other time with Eric Airmen, another riveting episode. Hey, I have hunted down this gentleman. I'm sure at some point he felt like I'm a stalker. It's been months of back and forth. Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Paul Njoroge is in the building. How are you doing, sir?
Very good.
Pleasure to have you in Every Other Time Studios. I hope I didn't hound you too much, man.
No. It was with my kind of job. I'm used to that.
Yeah.
I'm used to being looked for and being called at any time of the day, any time of the night. And sometimes the phone is not my best friend.
Yeah.
I sometimes just want to put it down and just put my head down because it takes a toll. But I'm looking forward to this interaction.
Pleasure to have you. And for context, for my audience, Captain Paul is the head of operations KQ. So, in a nutshell, he's a big deal. So we're getting his story about how he got into the industry, his journey through the industry till today, where he's talking about how he's tired, he doesn't get to switch off his phone, etc. So, Captain Paul, how have you been, first of all? How are things generally?
Good. It's December. So December is always a good month. It's busy for us. So when everyone else is having a good time, this is a busy month.
Yes.
So I will not take leave. I will be working. I will be on call throughout.
Yes.
But generally, I'm happy. The airline is looking up. It's looking towards profitability. So I'm fantastic end of the year.
That's nice. In fact, us guys even got a memo about how we can't apply for leave in its specific month. Comes with the job territory. Man, I have no complaints about it. I just know, high season is the time to fly people. People are traveling.
Correct.
So let's start from, we're not going to start from when were you born and how were you born? But I'm curious to where it all started in terms of aviation. You know, where did your interest into this industry of ours start? And when did you get your first flight? So let's start. Where did your interest into aviation begin?
So it was an interesting story about who are very young boys sitting on the beach in Mombasa with one of my uncles. He's called Gikandi. And his friend, he was a captain at that time. He's retired at the moment. And his sons were looking up. And every time they look up, they could identify an aircraft. I'm like, how are these young boys who are below 10 years old identifying an aircraft? And another aircraft passes, they identify it. So I'm like, oh my, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to know which aircraft that is and be up there in the sky, just soaring up there in the skies. Interestingly, there was no one in the family who was an actual pilot. So
Yes.
This person was a friend to my uncle. So when I went to tell my parents that I wanted to fly, they were like, no, this is not the thing for you. You need to look for something else. Be a lawyer, be a doctor, be anything, but not a pilot. So interestingly enough, I continued to pursue my dream by talking about it and talking about it and talking about it, until when I finished my high school and I was called for law in Nairobi University. I went, handed over the paper to my mom, called a few uncles and told them, by the way, I've been called for law. So I'm bright enough.
Yes.
So, but just because I've been called for law, now I can go do my flying.
I like that. And, the fact that you've been called for law, I always like to emphasize, man, it shows that the brain capacity, the IQ level is high enough, especially in our context where sometimes, I don't know, do pilots, we get a bad rep when it comes to our abilities or inabilities, So the fact that you're called for law speaks volumes. So I know you trained in the States. And I've interviewed guys who've trained in South Africa. We've gotten the Kenyan story. So I was also very curious to hear about the American flight school experience. So describe that a bit.
So that was a dream come true. Landed in the US in September of 1999. And flew my first flight in the same month of that 1999. A Cessna 152.
Which state is this?
This is a state of Texas.
Texas.
So the Lone Star State.
Yes.
And at that time, it was glamour to fly in the States. It was the States that before September 11 flying was easy. It was free flowing. It was you could just take an aircraft and go wherever and just enjoy the scenery of the state. So this school was in Fort Worth.
Dallas, Fort Worth.
So now, yes, so it's DFW. Everyone knows it as Dallas Fort Worth.
Yes.
But Fort Worth is a city next to Dallas. It's similar to Dallas, slightly smaller than Dallas, but they are within 45 minutes of each other. So we were in the Fort Worth area, and not Dallas area. Fantastic airport called Meacham Field.
Yes.
And we were mostly flight schools, and one 737 which used to take off and land and do circuits. And we used to say, man, we
One
fly
day.
that aircraft. But the States was fantastic. You pick an aircraft, just like a car, go fly to another state and land. When you land, when you land and you fuel,
Yes.
they give you a car. You go around, you go have a meal, come back. So we were living like dons then, and you are students.
But it's important to mention you're Paul Njoroge. Yes. This is Texas.
Yes.
So you land there. I'm sure there's a lot of adapting that needs to happen from acquiescing to the culture. This is late 90s. So I'm imagining there are so many cultural implications of being a Kenyan or a foreigner or an African in such an environment. What was that entry into this whole new culture like? So continue as I adjust my chair.
So there was the initial bit where I got in, and the first few days were not the best. My apartment was not ready. I had paid for it. I was put up in a hotel.
Yeah.
And on the first day, I thought, man, this hotel is $70 a day. $70 in 1999.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. So I was like, oh my, what's going to happen? These guys are going to exhaust my money. And I didn't have that much money. I just had enough money to fly. These guys are going to exhaust my money before I even start flying. Luckily, the school had a lot of Kenyans. And the guys got wind. They already knew I was coming. So they came, picked me up. And I slept on a couch, even in as much as we say glamour in flying.
Yeah.
I slept on a couch for about 3 weeks. So
Save
I used to go to school.
$70 times 21.
That's how much I saved.
Yeah.
Yes. So $1,400, $1,500. But I slept on a couch. They housed me. So it was difficult times, get an apartment, settle in. The good thing is that there were other Kenyans who had been there. So it helped with the settling in, getting to know directions, where to buy some food, learning how to cook for yourself.
Yes.
And it was just interesting times.
Is there any welcome sherehe? Welcome to the States?
Not really too much. The sherehe comes later. Once you get to settle in. So yes, obviously there is just people choma some boozy on the first day, but not a big share of sorts, because they don't know you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we, in the Kenyan context, we follow a similar to like the UK kind of structure when it comes to the way private pilot license is structured. You have the 8 subjects. You have the 40 hours. Is that the same in the States? How do the FAA go about it?
Not necessarily the same way. So the doing flying in the States is very targeted to exactly what you need to know and what you need to learn. So the private pilot's license doesn't have the per se 8 subjects, although the elements of the 8 subjects are there. So you have one big book and a few others for weather, and you go to class. So how it was structured is you do to class about 2 hours every day, and then 2 hours of flying on a daily basis. And the PPL in the States was done in 2.5 months?
Wow. So
it was fast, it was quick, fast, and they teach you what you need to know.
In fact, I want to leave here a bit because you've captured something that I've emphasized on previous episodes. I did my initial rating on the Q4 in Canada, and the first thing my instructor said day one was, this is a pilot course. Good to know, need to know.
Yes.
Good to know, need to know.
Correct.
And other aviation industries don't necessarily adapt this philosophy. So having come from that philosophy, is that something you would vouch for?
It is the way the airline has moved, including how we are training our pilots today. You don't need to teach people like the 844 system.
Yes.
Lots of information, things that you will not use. I have lots of algebra I've done, lots of greatest common denominator, and I don't know, and just things that I'll never use in my life.
Thorax.
And I know things, but I don't need to know them. Learned how to knit a sweater. I mean, but why? Surely. So in the States, it was that way. You only learned what you needed to do to fly safely and efficiently. So the training was not like the one in Kenya, and that's why it's quick. So they train you on the private pilot's license.
Yeah.
I remember I got my first solo within approximately 3 weeks. And that was
3 weeks?
Yes.
Wow.
It was a big deal. I still have my T-shirt that is signed off by everyone.
Before we get to solo, talk
Yes.
about your family, because that's you've had this dream, and family is actually where you confirm if you have what it takes, because family, they take you up.
Yes.
They'll do some maneuvers depending on the instructor. Sometimes it's intense, sometimes it's not. But having worked in a flying school, I know that the people who walk away after family, But here you've gone to the States. There's no room for walking away. So describe your familiarization flight. That's your first flight with a...
It was like a dream. Just soaring up there, being told to keep straight and level, look at the horizon. It's the first time I realized the horizon is a line.
Yes.
So, and for those who don't understand this, when you look at the horizon from far on a clear day, you see it as a curvature. But when you're in the aircraft, you see it as a line. And they just tell you, keep the aircraft nose or the top of the aircraft nose on the horizon. And the aircraft flies straight and level. It was just fantastic. I mean, you don't land the aircraft, but you get to maneuver it. So for me, it was that was a fantastic moment. The scary moments were when there was turbulence.
Yes.
And those were scary in the first few days. And Texas is known for heat.
So thermals.
So the thermals and there's lots of fields that are just open up. So the ground heats up pretty much, and it's not as easy to fly in Texas, but fantastic.
An interesting thing about
experience.
family, especially on a light aircraft.
Yes.
I remember looking out. I'd flown as a passenger before, but now on my family, I remember looking out. You can see the struts. You're in this small thing, and you realize, wow, I'm at how many feet above the ground. You feel very vulnerable, but it's exciting, it's exhilarating all at the same time. You talked about the curvature, but you're not a flat earther.
Yes.
Do you know they're flat earther pilots?
No. I actually don't. I've never heard of that from because I haven't trained in terms of the really new pilots.
Yeah.
I train airline pilots.
Yes.
So I really haven't trained new pilots.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one for me.
Yes.
Or maybe I've had it before, and I've been flying different kind of aircraft. So that's not something that occurs to me right now.
So, but solo in 3 weeks is something that's unheard of, especially this side of the world. Even the best, most efficient schools, you're looking at the earliest solo maybe 2 months, and that's like someone who's really like pushed. So in 3 weeks, that means you're flying daily, constantly throughout.
It's very interesting because a solo in the US is at between 10 to 15 hours.
Yeah.
So between 10 to 15 hours, you're on solo, and in 3 weeks, if you're flying daily and you're doing 1 hour sorties, you're done in 2 weeks, you're at 10 hours.
Yes.
So 3 weeks, in fact, they try and make sure everyone does a solo within the first month.
Yes.
So that's their target. 2.5 months, everyone should be done with their PPL, or 3 months, max 4. But in this side of the world, it's PPL takes a long time.
Yeah, it takes a longer
Yes.
time than it should
Correct.
in most institutions. But you were talking about the elation now around the first solo. You've done your first solo. Describe the experience, taking the aircraft first for the first time. That's one of my most fond memories of flying.
So this was unexpected. In as much as you were briefed, it was very unexpected. And it came a little bit early. So doing circuits with my instructor, we did circuits. Then he told me, land and stop. So he landed and stopped. And in the US, because the field was very open.
Yeah.
It's not like here where you have to taxi out. So he landed, stopped, and he told me, so I'm going to get out, and you're going to repeat what you did. and I'm like, okay, really? So he got out actually on just off the runway. I stood off the runway and told me, take off and do what you did again.
Wow.
and just come and stop here.
Aircraft is lighter.
First of all, I was like, I'm alone in this aircraft in the air. That feeling, it's like learning how to ride a bike or driving for the first time on your own for a long distance, or not just driving to town or something.
Yes.
It's an amazing feeling. You don't really know what you've done until you've done it and you've landed
And you play it back.
Yes, and then you start thinking, oh, by the way, I can do this by myself.
And I think first solo confirms a lot of things, because it's essentially the first time you're pilot in command of an aircraft and you operated it safely and brought it back. So it confirms that you're in the right career and that you're actually on the right trajectory.
Correct.
So between PPL, from first solo, of course, you have to do the other sorties at PPL that entail PPL. How long before you complete your PPL and then transition to your commercial pilot license?
So the US is the way they structure their flying is different from Kenya. So when you do your PPL, after you finish your PPL, you build up some hours to about 100 hours, thereabouts. Then you do your instrument rating. And instrument rating on a single engine, which has been introduced in Kenya.
Yeah.
Wasn't there before.
Yeah.
And so you do your instrument rating, and that takes about 40 hours. So the instrument rating is actually more thorough in terms of class work. There's same as PPL. So you do class for approximately 2.5 to 3 months of class work together with flying with an instructor. So dual flying for about 40 hours. Get used to flying in cloud. Now, that was difficult.
Yeah.
That even up to when I finished my flying in the US, I still hadn't gotten to the fact that I could fly without looking.
Yes, without looking.
So they would put these
foggles.
Foggles.
Yes.
And to cover so that you can't see that horizon that you're so used to seeing. And at times would fly in actual poor weather, poor visibility weather. And that was something that you just can't grasp as a young aviator. Very difficult to grasp.
Is the philosophy behind them doing it at 100 hours or before 100 hours so that as you're doing your hour building, you're more competent to take the aircraft, not to traverse with the aircraft, perhaps even at night for cross-country?
Correct.
That's the reason behind it.
That's the reason behind it. So
yeah.
They want you to be comfortable to fly with a PPL and an instrument rating, and they give. So you do a night rating, you do an instrument rating, and then they tell you go build your hours. So when you're flying, they know it's comfortable. You can land on an ILS somewhere.
Yeah.
So an ILS instrument landing system. You can do anything. You can practice your instrument flying out there. So you're comfortable with the aircraft.
That's a very good way to go actually about it. I think that's something that should be adapted world over. Correct. So that when you're doing cross countries, let me shoot this ILS,
Yes.
Let me do an ILS at night. Let me do a VOR approach,
Yes.
That's actually quite the right way to go about things.
If I was to tell anyone to do their flying, I would still do it in the US.
In the States?
Yes. So their way of teaching is makes you get comfortable with that aircraft.
Some say that the Americans have rules that are relaxed. How I look at it is that their system aviation, actually all around, has evolved so far that even from an ethics standpoint, you're able to reduce certain rules because people won't necessarily breach. Do you think that's accurate? Is that an accurate?
So they are mature. If you look at history of commercial aviation, from First World War, not too much, but after the Second World War, when the aircrafts were retired and now people didn't know what to do with the aircrafts, and then there was the formation of ICAO, which is a body that runs the aviation infrastructure in terms of regulation. That's when the Americans started building their infrastructure for aviation. So this is 75, 80 years into aviation.
Yes.
And what they did is that they developed their infrastructure so much that there are no buses per se and no trains interstate. So moving from one place to another is really by aircraft.
And some aircraft are purpose built for specific, like I think a 1900 was custom built to serve a specific demographic interstate.
Correct. Yes. So those are their buses. So their aircrafts are like, they have developed so much. Their transport system in terms of aviation is that they know it extremely well. It's like when you get into your car and you start driving, you know what to do, when to do it without thinking. That's how the aviation is developed. So when they developed their training, they also developed it after a lot of feedback from the aviators that have been there. So they've been developing it over time. So they are pioneers in terms of aviation in this world. And obviously, manufacturers of aircrafts and the few manufacturers that are still currently in place, Boeing.
Yes.
That is American.
When you were there, did you get to go visit any like Boeing, like Seattle, and see like the manufacturing plants?
This is a 19-year-old developed into a 20-year-old. The places I was looking to visit were other more interesting places.
What are you doing with your downtime? I mean, you finished your IR. In between time, what does your downtime in the States look like? Especially being like you're free, your parents are not there, you're a young guy, you're a pilot also. That's.
So we did all sorts of odd jobs in between. So and this helps develop character. So in terms of the kind of jobs that you do when you're in the States, working for different organizations, working at the school. So just the things that you do to just develop your character. By the time you're coming to Kenya, you have been in the job market.
Yes.
And it's not the first time you're working for someone. So it was not just all good play and fun and just flying. So there was, in between flying, there was a little bit of work. And then we toured the States. I drove from Texas to Washington.
Wow.
That was an interesting drive. I've flown across states. And just enjoying myself. Not commercial.
Yes.
So you take an aircraft.
Our building.
Yes, and you fly across states.
That must have been fantastic.
So,
did you document that? Pictures up on Apale?
Yes, they're there. But something happened. Someone stole one of my hard drives.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, our car was broken into, and the hard drive was in the car. So I lost a number of photos. I have the hard copies of some of the photos, but I lost a number of copies of the sort of photos. I used to have the video cameras. You remember the video cameras?
Yes.
Not like this fancy cameras.
Those with something hanging here.
Yes. So those we used to use.
Must have been one of the cooler guys, man, having that back then.
Yeah. So it was interesting times.
And when you say you work, does that mean you are in charge of apart from school fees, now the like allowance, personal upkeep?
Yes, so that was one of the agreements with my parents that I have to keep to take care of myself, food, apartment, and they pay for the school.
Wow. Okay. So now when it comes to between now you finish your instrument flying, now you do your hour building. How long before you attain your commercial pilot license?
So as a young man, you're not in a hurry. You've gone there at 19.
Stayed over.
Yeah, you also want to enjoy yourself. So it took, I finished my flying in, that was 2002. So that's what, about 2.5 years. I took my time though. I took breaks in between just to enjoy life as would be expected. You can do it in about a year and a half if you just go flat out. But it took me about 2.5 years.
But 2.5 years is still, you are still a very young man at the time.
Yes.
And if you're saying 2002, I can't skim over the fact that then 9/11 caught you there as a foreign student, aviation student. Were you guys affected by that?
So this September 11, I was in my apartment. So I had a roommate, may soul rest in peace, a housemate actually. It's called Timothy Marine. And I was going to fly on that day. So I'd gotten ready. I was just about to leave the house. And then, so the TV was on. And I was getting ready. The TV is on, and I can see the aircrafts crashing into the building. But to me, this is a movie.
Well, it's not registering. This is live news.
So it's CNN.
Yes.
But this is not live news to me. This is just a movie. And so it kept on playing and playing back and playing back. Then we had gotten cell phones at that time. So the flip phones. And we were cool guys, so we had the flip phones at that time. Motorola, I can still remember.
Yeah.
And I got a call from the school, and they said, don't come. The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, have closed up all the airports. I'm like, huh? Why? Then they said, then the guy I talked to told me, you haven't seen the news on TV. So I went and sat. And I've been seeing this, and for sure I did not expect this to ever happen in the States.
And I think no one did, because the 9/11, the truth was stranger than fiction. No one would have envisioned people flying aircraft into building.
Correct.
So even watching it in real time, it will not just automatically register that this is real time.
Correct.
So now, how did that affect now the continuation of the pursuit of your licenses as a foreign pilot student? Did that affect from security, embassies? Was that anything that would have affected you guys?
So it changed how easy it was to move from one place to another. We used to fly to at the time it was Bush, the senior was the president.
Yes.
So we used to fly to this airport called Waco, Texas. So we would fly to either Houston, good times in Houston. Houston always had good times,
Yeah.
and then Waco, Texas, San Antonio. And we would be able to land in Waco and grab a car, go get something to eat, then go back to the aircraft and fly back. After September 11, that area was zoned off because everything now became more secure. Anytime you go to a field or land, there was always security, someone checking your ID, checking so things changed, and it became more uptight to fly. It wasn't as nice to fly just easily and just going anywhere. So you'd have to think, okay, so if I go to this airport, what are the security features? What do I need to carry? Do I need to call ahead of time to tell them that I'm going to be there? So it became a little bit more complex to fly. But it didn't affect the completion of school.
And that's one of the sadder natures of when it comes to aviation security being affected by dramatic events. Of course, 9/11 being one of them. Right. When it comes to airport security, all the protocols that we have to undergo, yes, including removing our belts and our shoes every single day, all come from, there's always one guy or a couple, yes, of guys who ruin it for everyone. Right. For everyone. So that must have been a very interesting time. I still remember 9/11. I came from school and I just found my mom watching CNN, and I remember the world kind of changed from that point. Right. From that point on. So you guys didn't have to go like rescreen embassy manenos again.
No. If you're in the States, you're in the States. However, they started coming to schools. So they came to all the flight schools. That's the FAA did background checks on everyone. I believe also FBI, and they something called it was called Homeland Security.
Homeland, yeah.
So there was no Homeland Security before that time. Homeland Security is that all the that's immigration, TSA that was formed at that time, the transport
TSB, NSA.
So it's the transport ministry in terms of the US, the immigration, and someone else, and I can't remember. I think and Social Security.
Yes.
So the three came together and put their databases together. So if you did something in one, the other ones would know. So in this case, it became very difficult to, if you had even a traffic offense, the other person would know. So you have to disclose. And the aim of that was, how could they not have known that there were certain people in their country
training in schools,
training and plotting to do such a thing? But it's good for them. I believe it's good. It's improved the security in the US. But it was a bit difficult for us. You'd get someone once in a while coming to question in the school, by the way, where are you from? Da, da, da.
And culturally, now outside the school environment, did your social life change? Did people, the locals, their attitude towards foreigners change? Did you experience anything tangible?
It was, well, for us as pilots, yes. So, but the locals had gotten used to us. But for us as pilots, we could see anytime you go somewhere and you say you are training to be a pilot and you're a foreigner, there's more security checks being applied to you as a person. However, from a cultural perspective, so Texas is next to Mexico.
Yeah.
Mexicans are Africans in South America.
Yes.
So even what they eat, their burritos, which we used to love, and fajitas and things like those that we enjoy having and eating. That's where they come from. So in Texas, it was fantastic to just gel with the Mexicans. So we used to go out. We used to go out to the Mexican clubs. The other
Tequila.
Yes, and enjoy ourselves. So
Yeah.
it was not too bad. I think the authorities also had too many Mexicans to deal with. The few Kenyans that were there were not a problem.
And are you at the tender age of 21? Are you aware of the political temperatures per se? You know, the way right now we're all global citizens. We kind of know what's happening northwest, east, south. Were you aware of we're going to war, all of that rhetoric that was happening?
What political temperatures? We were having a good time. So what political temperatures? Obviously, we could feel it. A number of people who didn't have their papers right were deported. So at the time there was anyone who did not have the right paperwork or was not doing the right thing or was caught doing the wrong thing knew that they could be deported. So a lot of people were deported at that time. But as long as you kept doing the right thing, went to school, kept on the right side of the law, it was okay. It was okay, but it became more uptight.
Yes.
The States was nice before that. It became uptight.
And how long now before you finish you start your multi-engine training and complete your studies there?
So I did and completed my multi-engine in, and I'm trying to get the dates. So I was back here in 2003. So yes, in 2002, early 2002, when I said I had already completed my multi.
What did you fly for multi?
So it's a Beechcraft, Beech, not 19, Beech something.
Baron.
I don't know why have I forgotten that aircraft.
Bonanza.
Not
Baron.
Bonanza. But it was a Beechcraft twin engine. I'll remember the aircraft. It's been a long time since I've flown it. So the time I finished it was just about 20 or so hours of the multi-engine. By 2002, I was done.
Did you enjoy the transition? It's always exciting in as much as multi is a short stint of training. The transition from single engine to multi is always something, and multi-engine IR,
Yes.
to take that step further. It's always, did you enjoy that transition? Two engines, faster?
So it was an interesting aircraft. It was fast. For us, it wasn't an IR. It was just a multi-engine rating.
Yes.
Because your
You'd already
IR,
done the
you're used
IR.
to it. So your IR, you're comfortable with the instrument rating. So it wasn't, I didn't find it initially fun because this thing was just moving fast.
Yes.
And when I'm used to seeing the ground moving slower, this thing was always moving faster, and the flights were ending a lot much faster. So the multi-engine flying was a bit rushed in my view, because there was lots of maneuvers to do with the multi-engine, very little time to really enjoy the aircraft and build time and do cruises with it, and just look at the instrumentation and play around. So everything, there was an exercise and an exercise and an exercise and an exercise, and every day it was. So I didn't feel that I enjoyed my multi-engine introduction. I enjoy multi-engine flying after, but when I was doing the initial flying, it was. So the US multi-engine is quite taxing. You do lots of maneuvers, lazy eights. They make you do things with that aircraft.
You have to get comfortable,
that you didn't think you could do with that aircraft.
Dead foot, dead engine.
Yes, and it's every day it's something new and but interesting. The school owner was called Milud. Very strict in how he did things. He passed on about 2 years or 3 years ago, if I'm not wrong. But he loved his students and he taught us well. He taught us really well. He's taught a lot of pilots in Kenya Airways, by the way.
Yes.
Yes.
And so from Malti, how long before do you decide to stay in the States at all before you come back?
Yes, so I spent a year just now.
A gap year.
Enjoying life.
Yeah.
Enjoying life fully. I bought a ticket. So I bought my ticket to come back to Kenya. And so first, before I bought my ticket, so I called home and I said, I finished my flying. I'm going to stay here for a while, but I want to come back home. And my mom was like, why? Really? Everyone wants to stay in the States or go to the States from here, and you want to come back home. But why? I said, I want to come back home and I want to become the president of the country.
Yeah.
So you remember I said I wanted to become a pilot.
Yes.
So I told my mom, so I'm raised by a single mother, that I want to come back home and I want to become president of the country. So that's the reason I'm going back home.
Does that dream still stand?
I don't know. Let's wait for 2027 and beyond. I don't know if I want to get into politics. But that was, so I bought my ticket back to 2002. I bought my ticket and just around December, early December. And I said, I'll come back home for the festive season. I left the States in February. When you want to leave, and you have been with this sort of friends, and they just don't want to let you go,
and they become family in a way.
So
family away from family.
I remember there's a day I was meant to catch my flight, and we changed it on that evening.
Yes, that's what you can stay on.
And then we did it again. So this time, and we were two of us. So the other guy, still good, my good friend called Gideon, he left, I think, 4 months after me. Yeah. We had bought tickets on the center.
Are you guys considering, are there job prospects at the time for licensed pilot? Because now you're commercial multi holder. Is there any path to joining a regional there as a foreigner?
In the States?
Yeah.
No, in the States it was quite difficult, especially after September 11. It was nearly impossible for non-American citizens to join the flying airlines or even regional would have been regional carriers. So the only route was to work at the school as an instructor, build hours as an instructor, which a number of my friends did that, and then come with 500, 600, 700 hours in Kenya. I just took a leap of faith.
Came back. So February came, you come back. What is February? This is 2002.
2003.
2003.
Yes.
What does the aviation industry in Kenya, because I'm in class 7, what does it look like at the time? Because what is the landscape at the time?
So it was on the upward trajectory. So the the airline I remember had that was 4 737s, 767s was 6. That's 10. They're just getting 777s. The 777s have been flying in the US for the last so many years, and you see them in DFW. By the way, in DFW, 7 runways. Every flight you're just seeing a 777 landing, a 76 landing, and Kenya is just getting their first 777 around the same time. So general aviation has some jobs, and excuse me, there are not as many people hiring. Hiring was 5 to 20 people a year.
Yes.
Those are the job prospects. But again, there are not that many coming out of flight schools. So if you apply yourself, you may be able to get into these jobs.
How's convex? They call it conversion. How was that for you?
That was interesting time. So The conversion was I did it at with Ririani.
Yes.
At Kenya School, KSOF. It's
KSOF.
KSOF.
Yeah.
KSOF. Well, here it's called that now. When I was there, it was just Kenya School, and I used to drive my parents' car to the flight school, do my classes. I could just not stand those papers. Surely, from what had come from in the US, very clear. You're given a database of questions.
Professional.
You're given the book to read. You're told the questions will come from here. You're taught exactly what you need to learn. Then you come here and you're told, by the way, we don't even know where the questions will come from, but I think this book might work. This other one and this. So that just was not going well for me. But it is what it is. We finished. We passed. Did things called gas turbine. I really don't know why.
Yes, so the mandatory papers, yeah,
Yes.
parfait.
Yes.
And as an industry leader, have you guys ever engaged the authority on structuring or coming up with better protocols around exams? And because this is my own personal philosophy, I think I shared this before. I think exams are a barrier of entry. So it's like, if you have what it takes to study this set of questions and topics for this season, you can hunker down, study, and pass the subjects.
Yes.
Then in 2 months, you probably won't pass the same paper. But what you've proved is that when the time comes to be given a manual, you can actually go through the manual and learn a new aircraft. So I think it's just a barrier of entry to the next stage.
Correct.
Have you guys ever thought about?
We have been engaging, and we engage the CAA a lot. I mean, there's very many things that need to change in this country, and some are changing. And there was a time when there was the older generation that were not willing to listen. We have come to a time now where we are having conversations with the CAA. We are enjoying the conversations and changing. So like now we've as a stakeholder engagement, and that's just the industry, we have come up with the 2024 regulations. The last 10 years, when we used to go to engage on regulations, we would be told, they're done. This is the way they are. They're done. This is the way they are. But you can put an input here and there. This time around, it was there was a lot of conversation. Why the change? What do you want to see? Why can't we do it this way? And that is maturity.
And the origin of this shift is it that you guys have you've been pushing that they actually at some point now start letting down and letting go of some of these old philosophies?
So there's that. There's just like we said, the US has matured. We are also
maturing, yes.
And then there are new people in the CAA who are thinking differently. So the older generation is even they have to think differently. If you take, say, for instance, the organization I work in, which is KQ, is it more than 60%, if I'm not wrong? Our HR person knows it better, but it's more than 60% is below the age of 40.
Oh, yes.
So even how I engage with them must be very different. So I have to adapt to how they want to do things, rather than them adapting to how I do things.
Are you saying in your relatively young age, you're looked at like Amze or not?
In as much as I feel young,
yeah.
The age group behind me there's a big different way of thinking, different way of doing things. They want what they want when they want it. They're the now generation. They want things. I mean, everything is on demand.
Yeah.
So you have to think differently when dealing with them. Today I was in class with very new first officers. I call them new. They are there 5 years. So, but I still call them very new first officers. They're on the Embraer fleet, and all of them, I could see they're just young, and I could see myself 15, 20 years ago just looking at, and I was enjoying looking at them. I've been doing the class I was doing a recurrency. I've been doing it for a long time. So I would finish the paper very quickly. I know the answers, so And I could see they are really researching and they're getting 100. I'm like, I'm okay with my 78, 90. As long as I pass, I'm fine.
A pass is a pass.
A pass is a pass. So I could see they're really keen on making sure they get everything. And I'm like, good. I like these guys. They'll come and take over from what you're doing.
And even where I work, the median age is 35 now. I think 35. That's the average age. So relatively very young company. But was KQ your first job, or did you have any other jobs before you joined the major airline?
So this is a lucky guy. Goes to the States in 99, enjoys his life.
Has a blast.
Yes. Apart from a few issues here and there, but really generally a good training, enjoyed the training. Finished my conversion, and I had applied to KQ before I finished my conversion. The day I finished my conversion, I was in Mombasa, in Malindi actually. I got a call and I was told, come for an interview. My papers are not even out. Yes. I applied before.
Yes.
I told you faith. And just by faith, I said, you know what, I will finish my conversion on this day. So if my papers go in early, because they've advertised, I'll go in and say, by the way, I'm just about to finish my conversion. But I just so happened to have finished my conversion. Now, luck is on my side. So the instructor who did for me the check for my conversion was a KQ.
Oh, wow.
A KQ captain.
Lucky stars, huh?
And then what happens? So they see, so I go in, I say, by the way, I finished my conversion, I've passed, but my license is not yet out. So they ask for my logbook. I do my interview, go all the questions, then they ask for the logbook. But I say, but you don't have the license. I said, it was Captain so-and-so who did my
check.
My check. So they look at the signature and they said, then if it's that one, that's fine. Just bring the license when it's ready. So that's how it happened.
And what does the interview look like in 2003?
So
right now, but the reason I'm asking this is if my peers will understand. As guys, we know psychometric, psychomotor, flight test, panel, medical. We're used to that format of interview. So when you've been shortlisted, you already know you have these 5 or 6 phases to go.
Yes.
Back then, what was the structure? What did an interview or being called for an interview look like?
So the first one was a panel interview. So you first went into a panel interview. So you go sit with let me call them Ubabas. Yeah. But they're my friends. They're still, some of them are retired. So you go into a panel interview, sit with these older captains in the industry, ask you very difficult questions. You're not comfortable. And normal aviation questions, but difficult questions. And then thereafter, then they ask you, why do you think you can join KQ, and what do you think you can bring to this airline? Obviously, me, big talker, wanting to become president.
I'm the man for the job.
Yes. So anyway, you sell yourself, and anyone out there, if you're not selling yourself, no one will sell you. So make sure you sell yourself.
Every other time with Eric, you had it here.
Correct. So you have to sell yourself. You're your own salesman. There was, so what you do now is you do psychometric and psychomotor, and you have these joysticks.
Yes.
So we hadn't developed the joysticks at the time, and you would do an assessment that is close to the psychometric. That you do on paper.
Written, yes.
Is written. And it has the same kind of things, kind of shapes, patterns, and so you do it on paper. And it's the same thing, but it wasn't more or less computerized. So you do that. Then there's this really ridiculous one that I think we have removed. Yes, I think we have removed it. You go to the military and do the maths and the physics.
And high school math.
I actually, that was the first one. So I had to buy Abbott Remember Abbott?
Your textbook.
Yes, Abbott.
Yes.
Yes, so I had to buy the app because I had lost mine from high school, or maybe I chucked it away immediately after because I didn't want to see it. So I had to buy that, and I had to buy another book. I don't know. Anyway, Abbott had physics and chemistry, and then maths. I did something else. So approaching speeds and a few chemical reactions here and there. I'm like, but why?
What has this got to do?
What has this got to
with
do
V1?
Yes. But I passed. I don't know how I passed, but I passed. Well, I guess when you're younger, it's easier because you've done those things not too long ago, 4 or 5 years ago. If you ask me right now to do that same paper, I can't.
But so far, tracking your story thus far, Captain, it strikes me that you're always someone, you present like things may be simple, but you always prepare adequately, it would seem. I mean, taking that initiative to go and buy the textbook shows that you're making sure that you're in the best position to pass these interviews, That seems to be a common theme in your story.
Preparation is a must. If you don't plan for what you're going to do next in life, you're planning to fail. So planning and pre-planning and rechecking, coming here. So remember you asked me, can we do it at 3? I was like, no, 3 is not going to happen. I had a class today. And then could I have met you yesterday? No, yesterday I finished my day, the day before. The day before I left work at 7:38. Wednesday I wasn't even sure. So you have to plan even the time, and you can't plan to come here at 6:30.
Yes.
So if you say 6, it's 6. I couldn't have told you 5. If I said 5, I would have failed.
And he kept perfect time, pilot style, right on time.
Yes, so that's part of planning. It's just anything you do, just plan and plan to do it well. So if you are reading, preparing for an interview, the only thing that is ahead of you is the interview. Just plan for the interview. Read. I've seen. I sign a lot of interview reports. Someone comes in for an interview. Even just the dressing tells the panelist, this guy is not ready. And for sure, person is not ready. Then our interviews are quite simple. And if you ask around, you'll get to know what kind of questions we ask. So just prepare for that. Read and read a little bit more.
And the resources are available,
Yes.
from, of course, predecessors and
Correct.
around the general theme of what you'll be asked. You'll
Correct.
not be asked something ridiculous that's so left field,
Yes.
Everything is in a certain framework. But now you join KQ, the pride of Africa, at its peak. What's the first aircraft you're flying? Is this a 737?
So there's an aircraft that was in Mitcham Field called a 737, and it used to do circuits. And in my envisioning of an aircraft that big, it's not supposed to be able to turn around and come back into a field on a circuit. So I didn't expect that the first aircraft I will fly is a 737. So I was given. So in this day and age, at that time it was you go into a room. The room. So you're given these manuals. These manuals are so the size of the Bible twice.
This is for the younger viewer. Yes. This is pre-iPad.
Yes, there's no iPad. There's no laptop. There's nothing.
Manuals were like this. I've seen some of them.
Yes. So you're given a manual that is double the size of your Bible. The Bible, not the Bible that you read, the one that you put in the pocket. The Bible that your parents read. Let me make it clear.
Yeah.
The Bible that your parents read, the big one.
Yes.
2 times. Told, okay, this is your manual. You're going to read this manual from beginning to the end. I think it was 1,000 and something pages. Anyway, whatever it is, it was big. And there were 3. So the other ones were the size of the Bible now. And then, so you read that, and then there is a bit of a teaching of
ground school of sorts
of the aircraft. So you do that for a month, and you've highlighted that manual. There's another guy who has highlighted where the questions are coming from. So you read your manual, then you read the other one for the other guy who's highlighted where the questions are coming from. So you're really cramming. And it's now lots of information, and you're like, what? Really? What have I gotten myself into? But it's still exciting. Then thereafter, you go into. So I went to, my first simulator was in London Gatwick.
Wow.
Staying at Hilton Hotel. We're still staying there now, so I know the hotel like the back of my hand. And it was winter. So because I joined in November 3rd of 2003. Went for the simulator in January. Was cold.
Are you partnered with, this is important, I just came from doing my sim checks, and recurrency, my second recurrency went well, thank God. It was, there's always pressure building up.
Yes.
Day one I was with a skipper, day two I was with an A4. Of course, with an A4 it's always harder because you have to swap roles.
Yes.
So were you paired with a captain? Were you paired with a skipper or a A4, fellow A4?
So this sim of ours was very interesting. And also unfortunate because we were five. A very unusual setup.
Number, yeah.
So we were five. There were two captains and 3 second officers ourselves. And when we were training, so we had captain, second officer, first officer, co-pilot. And we would have 6-hour sessions.
6, not 4?
Not 4, because the session was for 3 people.
6-hour sessions.
So we'd have 6-hour sessions for the fixed base. So for the fixed base, which was now learning the procedures.
Yes.
That helped a bit because you could see what the other person was doing. So, but it was still a lot of time in the simulator. So when we finished the fixed base, there was one of the persons who was now upgrading for command. So the 2 guys were first officers upgrading for first command, initial command.
Yes.
So one of them had some difficulties and had to leave.
With the training itself?
The training, yes.
Okay.
So we came back to Nairobi. And then, the instructors were not the nice instructors.
Locals or foreigners?
Locals.
So
times were not easy. So you think you've really done well, and someone is screaming at you and telling you, "Oh boy," and you're like, "Wow!"
And you're giving it your 100%.
You think you've done well, and the aircraft is heavy because you don't know how to trim it well, and you've forgotten to do a checklist, or you've forgotten to put some. It's a nightmare.
Can I just, for the audience,
Yes.
when we talk about sim, usually sim for an initial rating is about chunked into what is it? 6 sections or 8 sessions?
8 sessions.
8 sessions,
It's
4
8
hours
sessions.
each.
8 sessions, 4 hours each. And just for purposes of drawing the picture, a simulator is the head of an aircraft with the cockpit as is in the aircraft on jacks. So it's an aircraft on steroids. That's how I call it.
Yes.
So if you've done the Formula One sim in Village Market, the one that jacks you
Yes.
on the 3rd floor. So it's like that, just to a bigger size, and then it's got projectors, and you can see everything visually. And by the way, we do allow for any outsider to come into our simulator at Pride Center in Bakassi. Just come in, walk in, book, then come and do an experience. You want to go to fly to Bangkok, whatever it is, just do an experience, see how it feels to fly.
And it's amazing. The graphics are like the best video game you probably know.
Correct.
It's quite the experience. And for context, those 4 hour sessions, may I remember, especially for initial, after each half of the session, you feel like someone put a spoon in your brain and korogan.
Correct.
Literally. And then the sim breaks are 10 minutes. Who came up with the 10 minutes? Why is it 10 minutes?
Oh, I think the warlords. Must be the warlords.
Because it's never enough. You've just started drinking your coffee. Before you need to now top up cold water so that you can finish the hot coffee, so that you can go back to the sim. And that seems to be like the international standard. It's 10 minutes. Right. You guys in 10.
So it is the warlords and people like me. We are paying for this device.
This
device
financial
is costing us between $400 to $600 an hour. So I want to maximize and milk it fully, so you will work.
That actually makes sense. If it's the financial implication, then okay, that makes sense.
You can't waste time.
Can't have 30-minute breaks.
You can't have a 30-minute break. A 30-minute break is equals to $200 to $300. A 30-minute break, no, you can't have a 30. You can have a break after you're finished or before.
So despite the challenges, you said you feel like you're putting your A game. You feel like someone's not necessarily appreciating your A game, but you passed. How was your check? How was the day of your check?
So the check was when I finished the check, you know, you don't know whether you're going or coming, and unless you're an aviator on your first jet aircraft at 250, 300 hours, there are times you don't know whether you're going or coming. You know you've done your best. You here and there, maybe you missed something. You are not perfect. You are not perfect at that time. That you're still training. That's why they do the training. One instructor told me I have passed. Just like my today, where I don't have to ask for 100%. I was like, passing is good enough. Whether it was 71 or it was 75 or it was 80 or 90, I was just happy I passed. It was a relief.
It's such a relief. You said something so important there in terms of, I don't think I've had anyone, very senior guys like you, and all the way down to people who are a bit less experienced like me. There's no one who ever leaves the sim saying, that was perfect. You know, your session, despite the experience level, you always come out feeling like, I think that was okay-ish. You know, you're always waiting for a cue. Yes. And what instructors do is they always ask you, how do you think it went?
Correct.
What were your strong points? What were your highlights, lowlights? But I think sim is one of the most amazing tools aviation has in terms of coming from my recurrency. I feel so much more confident about the aircraft. You know, when you fly for 6 months, by month 5, a bit of complacency can set in. You know, things are so normal. Ops are so normal.
Correct.
So that reminder is very important. I can see that the advent of the simulator is a very important aviation tool. So coming back, you have to do the infamous Form 64. And Form 64 is where you take now the aircraft, the actual aircraft.
Correct. And
you have to do, is it 6 takeoffs, 6 landings?
Correct.
And for the most part, they try to do it where you guys do an air change. So the first officer will do his 6, the second first officer. What was that like? I had a lot of fun on mine, so I'd love to hear what your experience was.
All right, let me first just go back to the sim.
Okay.
To date, I enjoy my sim and actually look forward to going to sim. So just from a context perspective, I'm one of the few people who enjoys actually doing my sim training. The more you prepare, the more enjoyable it is. So I actually love the sim. I enjoy learning. I enjoy the experience of the sim. So even for those aviators out there who are sometimes scared, they want to find a Kenya here and there. What is this instructor going to do? If you adequately prepare, it's actually good fun. And it prepares you for an emergency that happens at any one time. And that's the essence of doing the training in the simulator. So it's actually a good tool. And as you get more experience, it becomes easier and easier. Well, not for everyone, but it becomes easier and easier.
Very comforting to hear.
Yes, it does become easier. So now to the base training. So I'm not mentioning names because I don't want to mention their names, but they know themselves.
Yes.
So I did my base training with this instructor, and he was not an easy person to deal with. Let me just say that.
Yes.
And at that time, I did my base training twice.
This is in Nairobi or Mombasa?
So in Nairobi here, the Nairobi wasn't that busy. So we used to do it from around 5 into dark, so that you do the fast landings during the day. So those ones were okay. Now the night landings were a bit of a challenge. So the captain did the landings, and the other guy did the landings, and I did. So we ended up being 3 of us doing our takeoffs and landings. So I was the last one to do. So I started. The captain started during the day. Then I went in second. Then the other person. Then now the captain came back, did his night landings, and I came in now the last person.
Yes.
Oh. Night landings in Nairobi were difficult. Now, Nairobi, even to date, I learned later on, Nairobi is not an easy airport to land into. Other airlines actually term it as a difficult airport.
Yes.
During the day it has, and for all the Kenyans who are out there flying and thinking that the Kenyan pilots in general
Erratic speeds on
can't keep this aircraft stable. Nairobi has got very high updrafts because of the wind and the temperatures. And then also the mountain waves, especially from the Ngong Hills on the other side.
Yes.
When you're coming from, say, the side from the western side. But during the day,
we always have to brief erratic speeds as part of the hazards, threats. Erratic speeds on file.
Well, I don't have erratic speeds myself. But, let's not go to erratic speeds. But the aircraft will go up and down.
Let me correct that. Vigilance for
Correct.
erratic speeds.
Correct.
Yes.
So it's a difficult airport. That said, that wasn't the reason I had difficulty in the landings. This is so you've been put in a machine. So I did the first ones. The night landings were not as perfect, so I had to do it again. And the next time, so I had to wait for about a week, and then we got an aircraft. And this is an airline giving you a full aircraft
To do circuits.
Imagine that.
An aircraft that could be flying maybe to Dubai.
Correct. Yeah. So it's still surreal. Even today, you know that this happens, and we do it still, and it doesn't feel real to the moment. And
Mine was actually a year ago. I remember we were 6 of us. We met in the briefing room. We're all nervous. We've all finished SIM. Now we're being given the actual aircraft.
Yes.
It was very exciting, very scary, a lot of fun. Surreal is the word. It's surreal. You can't believe you're there upwind. You're like, wait, I'm flying this thing circuits.
Correct.
It's quite something.
Yes. So it was an interesting. So this journey was an interesting journey. Flying the 737. I'm 23 years old. Received my first salary. I'd received more money than that in the US. So I'm like, man, this payslip is not. But anyway, it was still the dream. This to date. If you tell me to fly for free, no, and my employer is listening, I won't do it. But I can still do it for free.
Passion.
I love it. It's my way of escape. Tomorrow I have a flight. In the afternoon. So I like flying on Fridays. I can dictate which day I fly.
Comes with your
Yes.
post. You can make such
So
decisions. Yes.
I enjoy just being up there in the air, and especially switching off my phone.
Wow. Because it's the only time now you're actually genuinely unreachable.
Correct.
You cannot be reached because you're...
Well, I'm still reached, but not as much. There's not as much interruption of phone calls. And yes, we need to have Wi-Fi in Kenya Airways. Granted,
Yes.
all airlines have Wi-Fi. But if passengers were to enjoy just the disconnecting.
Yes.
In this world, we're always told when you go home, around 9 o'clock, 1 hour or two before you go to sleep, disconnect. Put your gadgets away, just disconnect and just talk to people, have a conversation like we're having a conversation here, and just get to know people. And if you're going to use your phone, talk to someone.
Yes.
Yeah, call someone and talk to them and have a conversation. And that's
Not just scrolling.
not just using your fingers and getting dopamine from seeing screens and likes, and that is not the way to live life.
You've talked about passion. Is there aviation without passion? And I'm a very passionate aviator. Like, the only reason I made it where I've been is relentless passion and pursuit. Can you exist in this industry of ours? Perhaps let's speak from the context of the flight deck, because that's the viewpoint we have. Can you last without passion? Is it possible?
I really don't know any aviator who's not passionate, including non-aviators who are in the office space, this industry seems it has its own dopamine. So whatever it does, I mean, if you look at presidents of certain countries, they always say, I wanted to become a pilot, then I became a politician. But and you'll hear this a lot, including, I believe, Obama himself who said that. So you'll hear a lot of people saying, so the industry itself has lots of energy, and this energy just somehow rubs off onto people in the office. So I'm an aviator, but I work. So from my job position, I'm always in the office, and I work with people in the office. And once they join the airline, they don't want to leave the airline, or they don't want to leave the aviation space. We had a tournament, a golf tournament, not a golf tournament actually, it's one of the captains of Karen invited us for a game. And there were XKQ and KQ people. And the XKQ people said, we want to come back to work for KQ. They're working for other companies. They have their own, but they miss the energy and the vibe and I don't know what this.
I'll take it a step further. I don't know your leanings when it comes to faith, but I'll say there's something spiritual about the realm we operate in. That's why it has such a pull. Both can be positive, very positive, can also be negative, but there's something very reverent about aviation. But I wanna move from chronologically, because a 23-year-old F1 737 is a serious guy, but you're 23. By societal standards, you have a very big responsibility. You're flying very big aircraft across continents, and I want to try and understand what kept you grounded at 23, because it's very easy to just lose your mind. You're getting a good paycheck, you're landing in Heathrow. People don't want to kutambua bana, you're 77 A4. So how did you keep your wits about you? Because not everyone survives that journey. You've managed to survive it all the way to the point where you're at the helm of your career. How at 23, what was grounding you? What was the background thing that was keeping you in check?
All right, so when you get into the aviation industry and airline especially, when you finish the training, the first 1 year is you're still in awe of what you're doing. So you go to work and you have a bounce in your step, and just the fact that every other day you can go in and do this thing that you're passionate about. Then sometimes you wake up and you pinch yourself and you're like, actually, I'm going to fly. I'm going to wear a uniform, I'm going to fly. And that just keeps you going. And you don't realize as the time goes, because you're doing what you love. Absolutely. And you don't want to spoil it.
Yes.
But obviously you're there, you're proud, you're there, you're telling people, I fly 100 and people, your relatives, you fly them once in a while, and you're happy to show them that you are the pilot in the aircraft. So it's you have to have both your own mental awareness of what you want to do. I am a very different character. I have plans, and I'm grounded. I'm very grounded. I was brought up well. Thank you, Mom. Thank you to my uncles. I was brought up well, and I thank the people who told me, what, there's a time for everything. There's a time for sherehes. There's a time to work. When it's time to work, take your work seriously. Obviously, when you're young, it's not always possible, but 95% of the time, 99% of the time, you are basically taking the work seriously. Once in a while, you may sleep here and there and not be available for work for some duty when they want you to come in. But in general, just make sure you passionately put on and be available for the duties. But it was more or less the fact that I was doing what I came to do that just kept me grounded. Really kept me grounded.
You couldn't have said that better. You know, I'm thinking about sometimes when you do the walk around and you look at the aircraft that you actually have a moment and take it in. You're like, this is actually me. You know, this is actually happening, you know. And what about the destinations? Because 7.3 goes pretty far. Is this your first time traveling around the world on that level?
So the 7.3 at the time, was doing. So we did have Embraers. So we had a 737-300, which we call the classic.
Yes.
And then we had the 737-700 KQ Echo and Foxtrot. So we would start off with the classic, and the classic was generally the farthest we would go is Cameroon, South Africa, a bit. So it was the first time going out to certain places and just getting to this exposure, and then flying the KQ had just gotten the 737-700, and we called them the Ferrari at that time.
Yeah.
They were maybe 2-3 years old at that time, and those were going now to the Accras and Dakars, and you are just looking forward to just being out there, getting to know Africa, Cairo and Istanbul, and we had destinations, and you would get there, and the flights were not daily, unlike the way they are right now. So you'd get there and you'd spend 2-3 days in a destination, get to know a destination, get to know the people, get to enjoy the cultures.
Sounds like a dream.
You can't beat that. You can't beat that. That's something that if I was to relive my life again, I wouldn't want to fly for Qatar at the time or Emirates. I would still want to fly for Kenya Airways. And build and see the airline growing as you grow, so and be in Africa and know the African culture. So it was fantastic just seeing Africa and knowing Africa.
How long before you transitioned to the next fleet at the time? What was the time spent on a single fleet?
So it was not too long. A few of us joined the airline when it was really expanding. So in 2005, you can't guess what I was flying.
If I was a betting man, I'd say the Boeing 777.
Good man. So in a span of 2 years, I was on the 777.
In 2 years?
In 2 years.
Wow.
And
how different is the narrow body from the wide body from the pilot perspective? How different is that? I've always tried to imagine, like, what's that like?
That machine is huge. So it flies gracefully, the wide body. The body or the fuselage, so it's the fuselage or the body of the aircraft.
Yes.
Is the size of the engine of the 777.
Yes.
And when you get into that machine and then you look back at the number of seats that are there,
it's quite something. Yeah.
It was 322. So it was a 777-200ER.
So that's 322 diagonal what?
So it was 30 seats at the front and 292 at the back.
How many crew? That's
it was at the time we used to do. It was still 4 doors, so we used to do 8 crew.
So 300 diagonal 8.
Yes.
Oh my God. 300 diagonal 8.
Two diagonal 8. Yes. So we used to come into Nairobi and we used to be asked souls on board because we were always full.
Yes.
I was 340 plus infants, so it was generally always souls on board 340.
Does the magnitude of carrying 340 change, like from carrying? How many were you carrying on the 73?
So it was the 73 at that time was both the 700 and the classic was 116. It does, and you feel it.
That's a concert, man.
And when you say it, the controller, the ATC controller, would ask, "How many souls on board?" So it was an interesting. And now that we talk about controllers, when I joined the aviation, because of being in the aviation industry, At the time when I was getting to the 777, I got my now wife to join the air traffic control. So one of the people who I used to tell 340 souls on board
Was your wife?
Was my wife on the other side.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, so it was an interesting. So the family is now all aviation. You see it. I said, aviation rubs off on you.
And how integral has that side of your life been in terms of allowing you to blossom to where you've reached in your career? Because, I mean, you're a head of operations, KQ. How has that background support also assisted?
It's really good because it helps when you're discussing things. And for those who are aviators and then their better halves are not, be it you're the lady or the man, it's quite difficult to discuss something with someone and then you're like, V1, what is V1? Surely, I mean, you don't know V1, why don't you know?
My wife tells sometimes, she's like, yo, but I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, so that in itself is really good, and we've grown together. So like now when we're talking certain things in the industry, and it really helps when you have someone who you can engage on many different things, but also on work-related.
And without being specific, you guys are both industry leaders, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, I think she's done more than me. She's got a master's. She's a state safety officer in charge of in what we do in Kenya from a safety perspective. So she's done really, really well, and I'm very proud of her. So it's very good for me as well because it's easier to have discussions in the house on what can we do, what is going on in the industry. We discuss certain things in the industry, but we try and stay away from aviation at home. But when we need to, we discuss it.
I think that's a very holistic approach. I always like to hear the family side because it's so important. We're not just a unilateral beings where we're just the workplace people. We also have all these background things happening. And before I move to the next segment, you said, because I've had many people who've flown the triple say, despite even having flown the 787, some of them, that the triple remains their favorite aircraft. Why is that?
All right, I am of a different opinion. The 777 is a beautiful aircraft, the way it was built. It just wants to fly. So I feel like it has some magic on the wings. The wings are so clean, it doesn't want to come down. It just wants to keep on flying. Turbulence-wise, it's stable. Lands extremely well. Because it's big, it has a lot of ground effect, so it lands extremely well. That said, I love the displays on the 787, and the cockpit of the 787 is extremely, it's the same as the 777. 787 is quieter inside. So comparing the two, now I personally have an issue with the 777, not because of the aircraft is beautiful, but because of the destinations that we used to fly to. And this will feel bad to some people because we used to fly to London, Amsterdam, only. And then, so there were 3 at the time. So 2 would do London and 1 would do Amsterdam. So every time you take off, you go to London. Take off, you go to Amsterdam. Now, that's why I'm saying it feels bad because some people are thinking, well,
that sounds like a dream. That's exactly what I'd love to do.
But it's monotonous. It's monotonous to do it for 3 years. Do that month in, month out. Month in, month out. It was exciting initially, then it becomes monotonous. Now, the 787, on the other hand, has all these destinations, has JFK, has London, has Amsterdam,
JFK,
has
I think JFK
Paris, has Bangkok, has got Dubai, has got a lot more destinations. So it's not monotonous. You can go just about anywhere and everywhere. So that's my only. But the 2 aircrafts, from a similarity perspective, they are extremely beautiful. I think. So the 787 is so quiet. If you're sitting in the cockpit, No. Let me, for the ladies. If you're sitting in the flight
deck, yes. In the
Yes.
flight deck, yes. Every other time with Eric is an equal.
Let's call it the correct. So if you're sitting in the flight deck, quietly at night, and another aircraft is 1,000 feet above you and crosses you, you hear them.
Wow.
That's how quiet the aircraft is. They have perfected the way the aircraft is quiet inside the cabin. So even for the passengers, it's a fantastic product.
It's also pressurized to, is it 6,000?
6,000, yes.
So it's more comfortable for you.
6,000, and then it has humidity. So there's moisture that is being circulated in the aircraft. So the other aircrafts, because they are nichuma, so aluminium. Aluminium, you don't want too much water. So because the 787 is composite, you can put in water inside the aircraft, and you will not get rust or.
And that 2,000, and for the viewer, aircrafts are pressurized to sustain human life, because after a certain altitude, for you to be able to breathe normally, you need air to be pressurized. So the difference between most aircraft are pressurized to 8,000 feet.
Yes.
Now the Dreamliner is pressurized to
6,000.
That difference, does that help even with things like fatigue and?
A lot. So it's let me give you an example. It's if you are up a mountain at about 10,000 feet, that's where the air starts getting depleted. So if you go up Ngong Hills and sit up in Ngong Hills, you'll get a little bit tired. Now Nairobi, where we are seated today here in Upper Hill, I believe we must be at 5,600 or 5,500.
Thereabout.
The airport is at 5,300. So in short, when you're flying the Dreamliner, it's as if you're seated in your house in Kenya, Nairobi, at any one time. It's like you haven't left. So the air you breathe is the same as what you're breathing here on ground, and the humidity is even more. The Nairobi air can be slightly drier. We even make it more moist in the aircraft.
So that means it's perfect for long haul.
Correct.
Now, I want to hear about the transition from first officer to command, because that's a big transition in every pilot's career, from training to first officer. First officer it's an interesting role. I mean, you're direct assistant to the captain, but a lot of responsibility still lies with the pilot in command, together with culpability. Those things go hand in hand. So what was your transition into command like? What was that experience, and what did you command first? What aircraft did they put you on as a captain?
All right, so I flew the 777 until 2008, and I didn't want to leave. So we had started going to Paris and Bangkok, and there was a 777-300 coming, so exciting times. Kenya Airways was profitable still at that time, so times were good. Well, Kenya Airways was actually a really, really good company then. Too much money. Still is a fantastic company, but I mean, it was much better to work for at that time when we had a lot more money. Fast forward, I do my ATPL. I get into a bit of activism here and there.
You throw stones a bit.
Yes. I don't sit still. Just because I'm sitting still here, I don't sit still. And I get my command promotion. So the movement was very quick at the time.
2 years there, about 3 years.
3 years, yes. So
that's a dream.
At 5.5 years, I'm getting my first command again in the month of actually it was 5 years total, because it was in the month of December of 2008 when I went to Singapore for my Embraer training, Embraer 170. So Embraer 170 was the first aircraft I commanded. So from 340 souls on board
70 now.
to 78 souls on board.
I got to ask a question for my fellow A4s.
Yes.
By the time you're called for command, 5.5 years, yeah?
Yes.
You've gone up fleet, you've come down. Are you just naturally ready for command, or it's something you have to step into?
No, you're not going to be ready. You are ready from an experience perspective, mental, if you are mentally there. Not everyone got command that I joined with. So not everyone had done the ATPL, so I actually got command earlier than some of the other guys. There's some who wanted to get their command. So it's also, again, state of preparing and putting your mind there. But when you get your command, and I remember I did my route training. So you go through the motions, and the motions of doing the route training are not too difficult. It's when I first when I finished my training and I checked out. Captain, given my bars, and I'm fantastic, I'm happy, my hand is shaken, the guy removed his jacket, I walked out with his jacket, his epaulets, and you're feeling like you're on top of the world once again. That moment doesn't dawn on you until my next flight, my first flight, was to Lusaka by night. And then there was weather. And I looked left, and I saw a window, and there's no one to look left to. So normally, so just for the audience again, you sit on the right side as a first officer.
Yes.
And there's always someone on the left side with more experience who's gone through this.
And the buck stops with him or
yes. her. So whenever things are tough, you just look on the left. Captain, what do we do? So I looked left. I saw a window, and it was dark, and it was a dark night. And I checked out in February. February, south is chaotic. There's so much weather. I'm like, now I'm in this big aircraft. I give it, but
relatively.
Yes. Things are not looking good. So I look right, and I'm like, okay, so now we have to do this. So I'm doing the flight, I'm flying, and this Embraer, the weather radar wasn't as good.
Yeah.
So you would see the weather just as you get there. And that was frightening. So as a
you're having
captain,
to turn last minute.
Now you're having to do this, and now you're thinking, am I going to watch my first command flight? I'm going to enter weather in my first command flight. So that time, I felt like I was learning how to fly again. So you are careful, you prepare, you over-prepare, and you're just not ready. And every day you're learning. So your confidence level is not the way it was when you're flying as a co-pilot. So your confidence, you start building your confidence again. And it took a while. So it takes a while to build command confidence. Flew the Embraer for at least a year and a half. That was an interesting 1 year. Kisumu, weather. Malindi, short runway.
In fact, let's leave here a bit. Malindi, because I ask guys go to Malindi all the time, and I've always scratched my head. How are you guys entering Malindi?
So it was. I mean,
were you doing Malindi by night?
Malindi, no, by day.
By day, okay.
I think I got high blood pressure when I was on the Embraer. I must have gotten high blood pressure when I was on the Embraer.
RNP runway 17 Malindi.
It was not. So you land and you're stopping at the very, very end, and you have to. It was a captain's landing only. And you have to land where you're supposed to land. So the runway is, so for the runway is short. So let me give context. Nairobi is 4 kilometers long.
Yes.
And sometimes you land in Nairobi and people go nearly to the end of the runway. Malindi is 1.7, 1.3.
1.5, I'm not wrong.
Yes, thereabouts. So it's as short as a runway here in Wilson. Now we are putting a jet in Malindi, and it's narrow. So that used to be bad for the heart.
You'd be thinking about it the night before or the day, because I've always wondered, how are these guys entering into Malindi?
Yeah, it wasn't good for the heart. And then Kisumu was also short because it was displaced, because Kisumu has only just been made. Kisumu had, because of the water spoiling the runway, it always used to get potholes. So Kisumu today is fantastic. What we used to land into was not. So it was Kisumu, Malindi, Mombasa. Mombasa was fantastic. Mombasa was easy and good food in Mombasa. By the way, I loved the food in. The only reason I used to love going to Kisumu and Malindi, the food was fantastic. So you would get prawns in Malindi or some good fish in Kisumu. So after the hard work, at least there was something to look forward to.
Yes.
Some chakula. So that was, but it was.
And those captains only landings also, for context, also give us a fright. We have our version, we have our Diani. Diani is now a narrow shot.
Correct.
In fact, we even have a supplement.
Yes.
And so at times those guys shika that seat. Sometimes, it's always a challenge. There's no time you'll enter Diani and everything just, you have to be very aware of what's happening.
Yes. So that 1 year was for frightening myself, building my confidence. Building character of commander. Now, I stopped looking to the left and I started looking inwards. So that after a while now you become generally comfortable in a way, not fully comfortable. I can say you become comfortable as a captain, really comfortable, confident after maybe 2 years, where you are generally, after you've done maybe 4 different sim sessions, you've seen quite a number of things, you start becoming now comfortable as a captain. You're not second guessing, because there are times you would go into a fleet and you'd change fleets and the first officer has been there so there are warlord first officers as well. So they've been there for 5 years. And the guy is telling you, no, this is not how we do things around here. But the guy knows the aircraft. So you're thinking,
And does command change outside the airline flying environment? Does it change how you interface with the world now as a captain? Just the experiences, having to lead the team, having to lead the crew. Does that change you as a person outside that environment?
Most definitely. The fact that you have the responsibility on yourself, it changes you. You think about what time you even sleep. You think about other people. You think about, so you think not just about yourself. So you think about the responsibility of now even your family. You start thinking differently. Before it was, you have the responsibility, but it doesn't dawn on you that I'm responsible. Like let's say, when you get your first child, yes, you've gotten a child, but so you're excited, then you go home, then they start growing. It doesn't dawn on you until they call you Papa or they ask you, how do I do this? And they are always looking up to you, and they expect you to know all the answers and all the right things and be available. So when you start getting that responsibility of raising someone, the same kind of responsibility that you get when you become a captain, that everyone is dependent on you to make sure you are safe, keep all the people in the aircraft safe, keep people working together as a team. If anything goes wrong, someone doesn't like the other person or they want to have a fight, you have to be the one to sort it out.
To mediate, yes.
So you become, your level of responsibility changes. Even if you may have some immaturities in a way somewhere else, they can't show when you're wearing the 4 bars. Show them outside.
Yes.
Not inside the aircraft.
Wow, that's a very, very interesting perspective. But for you, captain was not enough. Most people reach captain and, I've made it. I'll move from captain on this fleet. I'll go to 737. I'll be a captain. I'll go to the Dreamliner. I'll be a captain. For you, are like, no, I want to scale the heights. And you made it into the highest level of management in an airline. What was that experience like? And why did you pursue to become head of operations? Is this a self-actualization thing? Is ambition?
I would call it. So there's quite a bit of ambition of wanting to do things, but it's also not wanting other people to make decisions that will affect your life for you. Just like we are in this country, and we are being told not to have an opinion about the country.
As recently as yesterday.
Yes, I will have an opinion about the country. So I've always had an opinion, and I've always not wanted to be seated somewhere and someone is telling me what to do. I want to be the one to shape what should be done. So that in itself is one that's given me the zeal to go into different things. So I just didn't become head of operations. I've done different things. So I've been an activist. I've been a union leader. Run the union.
That's a very unique dynamic. You've been on because I would imagine as a outsider looking in, and the common narrative would be that CALPA, the airline union, and management are always at odds, literally. Is that the case? Is that something that, well, that's a misrepresentation?
Not really. So a union in itself is not a bad thing. They just need to, and again, like the US airlines, very mature unions. And nowadays, so I've just finished doing a CBA with the pilots. Actually just finished, and that's something I'm proud of again. So we are about to just sign. So we finished everything. And a union is supposed to help management by having certain interactions with them in a mature manner, not fight. So what happens is, if all 430 people were to bring their problems, and then I have to deal with one by one, and I have 430 different contracts, so it will become chaotic.
Yes.
So there is also some benefits of having one body representing the people. So it's if it's mature, so it's the problem is sometimes the lack of maturity when dealing with when unions are dealing with management. But once you get that level of maturity, things actually flow. So it's not a bad thing. I remember so I've signed CBAs on the other side. I'm signing this is my second one on this other side as management.
Which is a tougher go in terms of expectations, being a union leader or management? Which one has more sleepless nights, if any?
I think...
I'm not assume you have sleepless nights.
I think both have their challenges. One is on this, as a union leader, you have the challenge of you promise and there is expectations. 400 people are expecting. On this other side is you're running a business. You know that these people are also expecting, the same people that the union is, because they are your employees first. Before they are union members, they are your employees first. Then you have the need to make sure that the business is successful and flourishes. So I think we don't sleep in management. I think so.
You're telling me before you came, days are long.
I think we don't sleep. But in general, it's everyone has their own stresses in life. I always say that the times when, that because of being where I am, people are sometimes going through a very tough time. And this is life now. This is life in general. So when someone reaches out to you and they speak to you and they say they want to speak to you, try and make time. So Eric says, come for a show. Come. Try and make time.
Truly grateful, yes.
If and it's the same thing. So you've asked which one is more difficult. You can't really tell because my level of stress, the amount of stress I can take up, I as Paul, is a lot higher than a lot more other people. So people ask me, by the way, how do you manage? So my threshold for stress is a lot higher.
I can only imagine.
But there is someone else who's going through something else that in terms of their stress level and my stress level, they may be the same, even though they're going through something else that might be less. So always look at people and don't judge them. Don't say that.
Empathize first.
Yes, know what they're going through. Have a conversation, and that is how you build relationships. Put the gadgets away. Talk to people.
And by your own admission, you touched on the fact that in the late 2007s, 8s, 10s, the company that you represent was way more profitable. Things were doing well. Of course, at some point, it's public information that the airline ran into some headwinds.
Correct.
It would seem now that the tide is being turned around, and there seems to be like a positive trajectory or a turnaround of sorts that's happening. And is that something that you would agree with? It seems, even from the whispers we hear, the general disposition of crew, things seem to be taking a positive turn.
So they actually are. So this started, I've been at this for quite a long time. So I joined management in 2014. So this is my 10th year in management. Been head of training, in charge of training. So I've done lots of training developments. During COVID, I grounded the airline and put it back. So that was interesting. It was the first time when you actually, the aim of head of operations is to make sure aircraft are flying. At that point, my aim was to park aircraft. My job was to park aircraft and to make sure they're parked properly and all of them fit.
Yes.
So that was not, that was unreal that we actually did so. And we did a protocol for parking aircraft and unpacking aircraft. And so it was an interesting episode of my life and the airline in general. At the time, we were in March of 2020, we were in transition. I was the accountable manager for the airline because the CEO was the CEO of Jambojet, and he couldn't be accountable manager. So during COVID, I was actually the accountable manager for Kenya Airways.
And that's probably the toughest time in aviation in history.
Yes. So that was...
So where do you look for... You see me, as an A4, I know I can just go to the SOPA and look at things I need to find out. When it comes to decision making, there's not necessarily... There may be some guidance from some of the manuals and print, but sometimes you have to actually come up with things. Where do you look? Where do you find...
Some of them are not written, some of them you come up with. There was an annex which I'd never read. And it's an ICAO regulation. It's called Annex 9. That Annex 9 is called facilitation. In Annex 9 facilitation, it says, basically it just gives you leeway to do things and ask for things. So until then, you don't know, you don't read, so you have to think outside the box. And that was, so you never think about a restriction. So just think outside the box. Think like a circle. Think just in everything goes round, and try and close a circle. Or if you're in a circle, try and open up a circle and draw another circle on top of the other circle, and just keep on building from whatever little information you have. Build from there.
And are your sounding boards, when it comes to human to people, are they only vertical or sometimes like up, or do you also soundboard down sometimes?
Both.
And down, there's no derogatory.
Yes.
Just hierarchies exist.
So you do get so especially during those very difficult times, you do get a lot of people calling and giving you tidbits of information, and you never know who's going to give you the right context of what you want to do. I had different people just sitting and brainstorming and working, and just ideas used to come up. I'd be like, oh, by the way, and this other person has done what? Let's copy what they've done. Or let's do this, and maybe someone else will copy what we've done. So it's just out there. It did help that we had just set up JFK, and that was a difficult route. So setting up that and going through the motions. So I'd read a lot of regs and laws and putting things together. So the airline gives you really good training and teaches you how to look for information in different places and then put that information together and write an actual document that was copied by the Kenya government as the COVID protocols.
Do you have a PA? In your capacity, wouldn't you need to have you'd have to, I'd imagine.
Yes.
Now I'm going to ask questions now. This is on behalf of some of my, of course, avid aviation fans, especially when it comes specific to KQ. There are some questions about the future. What the future holds for KQ. We know about some of the challenges the manufacturers have faced, Boeing being specific. Are you guys planning to take any Boeing aircrafts? If so, what fleet? Have you ever thought about Airbus? Or what's the plan? We always hear about the rumors about the Embraers. By next year, the Embraers are all gone. Right. Or they're getting 10 737s. We hear all this manner of things. And, of course, a lot of broken telephone. But now I have the head of operations in front of me. And it would behoove me to ask, what are some of the plans when it comes to fleet?
So for the fleet currently, let me start with where we are today. We have 9 Dreamliners, and then we have 8 737-800 passenger. We are currently pursuing one more. It's under inspection. And then 4 cargo 737, 2 classic, 2 NG. And then the others are Embraer, 13 of them. So the fleet... and Jumbojet is still KQ. So Jumbojet is generally also KQ. So it's part of the strategy. Jumbojet will remain Q400, and all intention is to remain Q400. So the fleet is a very difficult thing to. It's not as easy to shift fleets, but our intention is to move to an either all same narrow body fleet. It may be 73 or Airbus. And really for us, it doesn't matter. Whoever gives us the best deal, that's the one. So the 737 obviously has an upper hand because we already fly the 737.
Protocols, engineers, trainings.
Yeah, so obviously, you have the pilots, half the pilots are already trained, so that's half the headache gone. Engineers are trained, the hangar capability is also there, the crew, the equipment that you own is tailored for the 737. The Embraer fleet, the Embraer aircraft, I personally love flying on it. The 190. From a seat pitch perspective, fantastic. If we were to just do on the shorter sectors, Mombasa, Kisumu's, Dar es Salaam's, and Tebe's, fantastic aircraft. Where it has a challenge, because sometimes we talk about the Embraer and it looks like it's these aircraft that we don't want. So where it has a challenge is when you're looking at the African market in the sectors like Douala's and Joburg's, Harare's, where you're going slightly further and you have lots of bags. Then it has a challenge carrying all the bags because of space, because it's a slightly smaller aircraft. It's like a business jet. So our intention is to transition to a bigger narrow body fleet, which in this case, right now we are transitioning to 7.3. However, if someone was to come, investor come and offer Airbus 320, we have not said, just like I said, we're not sitting in a box. The box is only going to remain a box.
So you still believe in the brands despite like, the challenge with the Max. I always say, and this is Eric alone, I'm speaking for me, I would fly the Max in a heartbeat, despite the challenges and the dramatic events that were unfortunate that happened. I believe they've remedied it. And of course, there was a bit of a smear campaign. So you still believe in the Boeing brand and the products that they offer as well, despite those incidences.
So the fact that all my life I've flown an aircraft which has a control yoke in front of me, between my legs.
The cockpit, the flight deck.
Yes, you said it, I didn't say it. I don't see why I need to play a video game with an aircraft. I just don't see it. I really don't see it. I don't think it's fun. So I like the fun and thrill of flying the control yoke. And so the 7.3 is still, and the Max, have no issue with it. They've corrected, they've done the redundancy in terms of the systems. For those who are not well versed with the investigation, so there was the MCAS, but I want to not get technical. So what happened is that the engines of the aircraft were moved slightly forward.
Yes,
the aircraft was slightly heavy in the forward. So it has a system that helps the aircraft to push the nose up. So that bit which had only one system giving input, now there are two. And the redundancy. So the redundancy is such that if there's both of them are not speaking the same, the system does not work. It disconnects. Also, the bursts of trimming for the nose up are shorter. So it doesn't do the way it was continuous, and then when the pilot trims, it trims back. Yes. So they've corrected all that. Generally, I think it's a safe aircraft. If Boeing is listening, they need to design a new aircraft, though. And,
it's about time.
Give us a 797 to replace the 737. I always ask them, why did you not change the cockpit overhead? But it's about commonality.
And so I think there's also a sentimental element about the 7.3.
No, it's not about sentiment. It was about selling an aircraft that had commonality. So it was just about commercial. I think they'll need at some point in time, which is I think happening, to come up with a whole new aircraft to replace the 737. Just lift it up slightly. Stop having these problems of engines not having enough space down there. Change the landing gear, and we move on.
And I'm with you for the most part about the video game, and of course I know what you're alluding to. But over time, like the 350 is growing on me. I mean, aesthetically looks beautiful. Yes. When you read about like the philosophy around the design, it's also a fantastic machine to fly.
Yes, it looks. I like the Abramovich. Yes. Abramovich had a 767, and it used to have shades at the front. It was called the Bandit.
Yeah.
Yes. So 350 took that concept.
Actually, it does look like it's wearing some nice.
Yes. So it looks like the Bandit.
Yeah.
It looks like it's wearing shadows.
It actually does look like it's wearing shades.
Yes. So they just got that right. They perfected it, and it just looks aesthetically nice. So yeah, personally I don't have and my wife tells me that's not a good thing. So I don't really have emotional attachment to certain things. So if it gets old, I don't have an attachment to like an aircraft, like the way you were saying 777. I've moved on.
Yeah,
7-8 is good.
And now I also got to ask, this is personal again, so my colleagues, some will love this question, some will crucify me, but it's for Eric's personal knowledge. We have some very senior qualified captains, high time guys, ladies and gentlemen, yes, who of course would love to transition and fly jet, and they're some of the finest pilots the country has to offer. Right. Why is there no structure for guys to transition without necessarily going right seat?
So I told you I'm progressive. This current CBA that we've done with the union, has a structure like that now, which has changed, and I'll not talk about it too much. Let's sign it. It has a structure where if we can't get, if we grow fast and we need expansion, we can look within the country and go direct entry command. So it has a structure. We've now inbuilt a structure that does not require us to go to the way we were going to contract pilots. Now we go Kenyan, non-rated, direct entry command.
Wow, I think some guys right now will probably be smiling when they hear that. But now in the last segment, I want to find out, what does Captain Njoroge do in his downtime? We've gotten the whole career story. I think I've gotten to know how your mind operates. Brilliant mind, hardworking, very ambitious, which is actually quite inspirational. But what about your downtime? What do you hike? Do you shoot guns? Do you ride F1? Or how do you get away from the rigors of the work that you do?
So I love sports. I'm not very sporty, but I love sports. Played rugby in high school. That was it. Played in the first team for Lenana, for Maruni. So I'm still called Maruni by my friends.
Yes.
Then any and each and every sport out, any sport, be it cricket when you're in the World Cup, this guy will watch.
Yes.
Basketball when I was in the US, American football. But my favorites, still rugby. So I will wake up in the middle of the night. I'll wake up early in the morning because when New Zealand is playing, it's not the correct time here in Kenya. And I will follow the All Blacks. So All Blacks are my team, and I love All Blacks. So that, and then there is this team that is, I know people don't even know where the other teams are, but they are right on top of the Premier League. They're called Liverpool. We can't see anyone else behind us. We are actually walking alone.
Man City having a hard time, eh?
We are really walking alone. This time around, the Liverpool fans are walking alone. So that's the other thing that I love doing. Yesterday I tried to stay up to watch, but I was tired. It was late at night, so I watched the first half. So I rarely watch series or movies. I'll watch a movie here and there, but I'll watch my sports. Then I spend my time on the golf course.
You play golf?
Wow. Yes, so I spend my time on the golf course. I interact with people. I love that. So I wake up early in the morning so I work, some days I work between 12 to 13 hour days. On Friday, I wake up at 4. I work till around 12:31. Then I play in the afternoon. So it's my exercise. And then on Mondays as well, I start early, and then I play a 9 at around 4 o'clock, 4:30, just a quick 9. And it's nature, it's exercise. I can't stand the gym. The gym I can't stand. I'd rather walk the dog. But the gym I can't stand. For some reason I pay for gym, and I go to the gym for twice, and I paid for 6 months.
That makes two of us.
This thing is not. This is not for me. So I like the outdoor. I don't hike. I think everyone has their own thing. So I'd rather take a stick and hit a ball, even as much people say it's boring. The other people who actually make a lot of money from it, so I enjoy it. I am not the top best player on it, but I win some money here and there, 1,000 bob, 2,000 bob here and there. So once in a while you win at come top, and just enjoy it, and especially the fact that you are with people. That's the most enjoyable thing about golf.
Amazing. And now, favorite, it's now my own curiosity, favorite aviation movie? aviation-related movie. Like, I can name a few. Let me name, I'm sure you've watched all three. You've watched Top Gun. You've watched Flight, Denzel Washington, and Sully. Sully is about the miracle on the Hudson.
Yes, correct. So, Flight and Sully are good, okay. I don't like Flight for whatever reason. I don't like it because of what it portrays.
Oh, it painted us in a bad light.
Yes. But Top Gun, fantastic.
Fantastic, yes.
Yes, all of them, both of them. So both of them are fantastic. And then, by the way, my 40th, I am Maverick, and my wife is my sidekick.
Yes.
So we have bomber jackets for Maverick, for Top Gun, between myself and her.
That's so adorable.
Yes, so that's the one for us, and for me as well.
Most inspiring pilot you've ever heard of? And you can go back in history, all the way back to the origin. You're going to say Wright brother. But generally, most inspiring aviator.
I don't even think I will want to go outside, and I will want to stick to internal. So there is this captain called Musyoki, and instructor 777, very, very humble, gentle. He would teach you and you would understand, and he is not barking at you. So he started flying in the 70s, VC-10s and blah, 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 all those. And he would fly with him. He was a navigator. So he used to know how to navigate with the stars. Now, these are Kenyans. They're Kenyans like that here. This guy would name for me constellation, and he would tell me that star at this time of the year is, and we are headed south. Because I'm like, what?
Wow.
Then he would fly the aircraft with 2 fingers. And he was small. He was tiny. He was shorter than me by maybe just about a foot. I'm just about 6 foot. Small-bodied. But man, the guy could. So, as in that knowledge and the way he would impact knowledge on people, and we loved him. He's no longer with us, but he was fantastic. That for me is what I would want to be in terms of being an aviator, being gentle, but having the knowledge and being able to impact without you feeling like I'm bombarding you with information, and just being able to impact freely.
I love that you picked someone from Kenya. I love that. Favorite destination? You've been around the world. Destination that when you think about it, till today, you're like, man, I don't mind going.
That's difficult. Let's see. I think I'm torn between London and Paris, but I think Paris is no London. London still.
London Heathrow.
No. London City.
City.
Not the airport. The city. Paris matches in terms of beauty, but there's a language barrier. London, in terms of the historical beauty,
deep culture, rich culture.
I spent a lot of time. I know the streets like the back of my hand. I have gone generally everywhere. So that's the reason. That's the reason I pick it. For holiday, I would pick something else, but that I have been to, that I know, I would pick London. Paris comes a close second. In Africa, favorite destination? Accra.
I've had the fourth aviator to say Accra. I must visit.
Accra,
there must be something very special.
Accra has got just good vibes. Good vibes. Good vibes and good people. And you see the theme is you must have good vibes and good people. It doesn't matter what, as long as the people are good, you can spend lots and lots of time there.
Now, before I give my parting shot, I'd like you to look in this camera, say something to my audience, to all aviation enthusiasts, the casual fans who are casual about aviation, the guys from our industry who have watched this. Just something inspiring. Your story itself has been so inspiring. Just say something to the fans and the audience.
To all the aviators who want to join, to all the prospective aviators, to all the aviators who have been in this industry, for me, sitting here and just saying my story is an honor when I'm still young, and to be called in and to sit here and give a story about yourself, the journey, and hopefully it inspires a soul, a young boy, a young girl, a child who's just been born, to soar up in the skies. We want you up there. We want the aviation industry in Kenya to really grow and become bigger. I don't think we have reached our limits. That said, we still have to keep our opinions and keep on saying what we need to say to make sure that we lead this aviation industry in the right direction. Asante sana. It's been a good evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Paul Njoroge, what a pleasure it has been. Thank you so much for coming to Every Other Time with Eric. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for making it so easy. I know I hounded you. You actually honored as an industry leader. For you to actually come to my platform is very humbling. I'm truly honored. This will live forever. And Every Other Time with Eric, if you haven't subscribed, now is the time to subscribe for such legendary content. Airmen, Captain Paul Njoroge, it's a wrap.